So, what does it actually take to heal a planet? Today, we're diving into ecological restoration. It's this ambitious, incredible science of repairing the natural world. And yeah, it's a story about damage, but honestly, it's much more a story of hope and renewal.
All right, so to really get why restoration is so incredibly critical, we have to first get our heads around the sheer scale of the challenge we're up against. Our ecosystems, they are under some serious pressure.
Get this, 1.2 billion. According to the UN, that's how many people have their lives directly threatened by the degradation of land. I mean, this isn't some far-off environmental issue. It's a human crisis, and it's affecting our food, our water, our actual survival. But what are we even talking about when we say land degradation? Okay, imagine an ecosystem is like a really complex, finely tuned machine. Well, degradation is what happens when we push that machine so hard that its most important parts, the soil, the water, the very cycles of life, they just start to break down. It just stops working the way it's supposed to. And you can bet the ripple effects are, well, they're devastating. As habitats degrade, species just vanish. And we're not talking about small numbers here. The IUCN is reporting that almost a third of all amphibian species, nearly a quarter of all mammals, and about 12% of birds are now threatened with extinction. Why? Because the places they call home are literally disappearing. Okay, so faced with this massive, growing crisis, the world obviously had to do something, right? The problem was just way too big to ignore, and it sparked this global movement to try and turn the tide. And this has been a long time coming, really. We're talking decades. It got a huge push at the '92 Rio Earth Summit, which led to some major international agreements. And all that work finally led to a really concrete goal: restore 150 million hectares of degraded land. Right, so we get the what and the why, but what about the how? How do you actually heal an ecosystem? What does that even look like on the ground? To figure out the how, you first have to understand that every ecosystem has its limits. I mean, they have this incredible natural ability to bounce back from all kinds of trouble, but only up to a point. Scientists have a name for this, of course, the self-renewal threshold. Just think of it as an invisible line in the sand. On one side of that line, the ecosystem can pretty much fix itself. But if the damage pushes it across that line, it can't recover on its own anymore. It's going to need some help. And that right there, that's the moment ecological restoration becomes absolutely essential. It's not just about sitting back and letting nature take its course. Nope, it's an active, very intentional intervention to help a system that's been pushed past its tipping point get back on its feet. But this help isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. You can kind of think of it in 3 different levels, like levels of medical care. For minor stuff, the ecosystem heals itself. For moderate damage, it needs what's called rehabilitation, a little assistance. But for really severe damage, where the land's been totally changed, that requires a full-on reconstruction. So what does that look like in the real world? Well, rehabilitation could be something like replanting trees in a forest after a fire. The basic foundation is still there. Reconstruction, though, that's starting from scratch. That's like turning an old, abandoned mine site back into a living, breathing forest. It is a much, much heavier lift. But here's where it gets really interesting and a bit complicated. Successful restoration is so much more than just planting a bunch of trees or reintroducing one animal. There's a really important debate going on about the right way to do this. And when you look at where the effort is actually going, it's pretty eye-opening. A global review of these projects found that a huge majority, we're talking 2/3, are focused almost entirely on plants. Animals and the ecosystem as a whole kind of get left behind. This really shows 2 totally different ways of thinking, right? The plant-focused approach asks, hey, how many of our saplings survived? The animal-focused one asks, did the wolf population bounce back? It's really the difference between building the entire stage and being obsessed with just one of the actors. So what's the big deal? What's the risk here? Well, it's huge. If you only build the stage, you might just end up with an empty theater. You can create a place that looks green and beautiful, but doesn't actually function like a real ecosystem. You get a forest with no animals, no life. And that really brings us to the core of it all, doesn't it? Real restoration isn't just about the plants, and it's not just about the animals. It's about bringing the entire system back online. The job is only done when all the parts, the living and the non-living, are working together again. It's not about the individual puzzle pieces. It's about how they all lock together. It's about the intricate web of connections between the soil, the water, the plants, and all the animals that rely on them. That is what a healthy, complete ecosystem looks like. And all of this leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. Maybe the biggest challenge here isn't technical at all. Maybe it's about changing how we see the world. How do we learn to stop thinking in separate little pieces and start thinking like an entire ecosystem? Answering that might just be the real key to healing our planet.